Have you ever truly asked yourself, am I really free? Not the kind of philosophical question people ask when they are tired of life. I mean, in the most ordinary moment, when you open your eyes after a restless night, under the cold light of the first screen you touch every morning. That moment, when your hand moves by habit, without thinking, reaching for your phone. The feeling of waiting for something new, a message, a notification, a short video, anything that makes you feel you are not alone in the silence of the morning. That is the moment your mind, before it even wakes up, is already swept into the invisible stream of the world. One light swipe on the screen, and you fall into another day, just like hundreds before it, wrapped in the thin shell of freedom. You make a cup of coffee, or turn on the radio, play some music while brushing your teeth. The whole room seems to need sound, just so you don't hear the emptiness inside you. When you step outside, the world is ready to serve millions of tiny doses of stimulation. Car horns, phone rings, glowing billboards. On your way, you pass hundreds of faces, but you don't really see anyone. Your mind is still drifting through streams of information, through the habit of tapping, swiping, repeating. Everything is fast, convenient, and pleasant. It feels like life is programmed, so you never have to stop. Then a rare moment appears, maybe in the elevator, or at a red light, or during a sudden pause. No music, no voices, only silence. And in that instant, a strange feeling slips in, an emptiness, a vague discomfort, as if you are facing yourself after years of running away. It makes you uneasy. Your heart beats a little faster. Your first reaction is to grab your phone, swipe, look for a video, a song, an image, anything comforting to escape that silence, because somehow, silence has become the scariest thing of all. We call this modern life. We call it freedom, comfort, an open world. But if you stop for a moment and look deeply at this behavior, you will see the paradox. We are no longer living. We are being lived, guided by a subtle mechanism of pleasure, something our ancestors once needed to survive, but we now use to escape. In the past, joy was a reward after effort, finding food, surviving danger, connecting with others. Today, joy arrives with every touch, every second. No effort, no waiting. Just open the screen, and the world floods you with millions of fragments of instant happiness. But that kind of joy does not feed you. It is like a cold breeze across your skin. It makes you shiver for a moment and then disappears, leaving behind a deeper emptiness than before. Each time you fill that void with instant pleasure, you carve deeper into your mind the same pattern, that whenever you feel lonely, sad, or restless, you just need to find something pleasant. One tap, one swipe, one more escape from reality. Slowly, you can no longer tell what truly hurts you, or what truly makes you alive, because every discomfort is silenced before you can listen to it. If freedom means the ability to choose, are you really choosing? Or are those subtle suggestions from ads, algorithms, and social habits choosing for you? You think you are entertaining yourself, but in truth, you are obeying. No one is giving orders, yet the command is already etched into your reflexes. When you are tired, you scroll. When you are lonely, you seek a distant voice. When you are anxious, you reach for something that numbs you a little. Gradually, you lose touch with your real emotions. You only know that you need something right now. There is a deep paradox. Humanity has never been freer than today, yet has never felt so empty. You can go anywhere, talk to anyone, choose from thousands of ways to entertain yourself. But the more choices you have, the more you fear silence. Because silence gives you nothing to consume. It only brings you back to yourself. And that is what most of us do not want to face. Deep down, you know something is wrong. It feels as if something has been stolen from you, not by force, but by too much comfort. There are nights when the noise fades and the phone screen dims. You suddenly realize you can't remember what you did all day. You only know that you were busy, that you consumed, that you were caught up. But you can't recall what truly made your heart race, what made you feel alive. You no longer dream, imagine, or desire. Every emotion seems replaced by a reduced version of itself. Artificial joy, temporary concern, just enough happiness to keep you from asking questions. Perhaps that is the tragedy of our age, when we no longer need anyone to oppress us, because we willingly bow to what makes us comfortable. No violence, no chains, just pleasure, small, fast, and repeated, like a drop of water falling endlessly on the same spot until it wears through the will. We have let comfort become a prison. And the cruelest part is that we love the prison itself. Look around you, in the cafe, on the train, in the office. You will see countless faces bent toward the blue glow of their screens. No one talking, no one truly seeing anyone. Each person hiding in their own programmed world, built from their habits. A collective loneliness, a shared emptiness. And in that, everyone believes they are living their own life. In truth, it is obedience disguised as freedom. When you are controlled by pleasure, you no longer need chains. You return to it willingly every day. You smile, you feel fine, and you keep living like that. Until one day, you can no longer remember what pain, sadness, or longing truly feel like. You only know diluted versions of them, enough to function, but not enough to change. And then, in rare moments, when real sadness comes, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to be alone. You don't know how to sit still and listen to that emptiness. You fear it. You hide in sound, in images, in fragments of others. But the truth is that sadness you fear the most is the only doorway that can lead you back to yourself. No one teaches us this. No school tells us that silence is the language of the soul. But maybe, one morning, if you dare not to touch the screen, just sit in the early light and listen to your heartbeat, you will realize true freedom is not doing whatever you want, but being able to do nothing and still feel at peace. And perhaps that is where this story begins. When you stop long enough to see the invisible chains that have been wrapping around you without you even noticing. Aldous Huxley once envisioned a world just like this, where people were no longer controlled by fear, but by pleasure. A world that needed no prisons, no whips, because people willingly wore their own golden chains. In Brave New World, Huxley wrote about a society where everyone was programmed from the test tube to believe that happiness meant obedience, and that nothing was more frightening than pain, loneliness, or doubt. When pain is erased, meaning disappears with it, humans become smiling machines, smooth, obedient, and joyful in their servitude. Today, you no longer need soma, the magic drug in Huxley's novel, to keep yourself quiet. You already have countless versions of it. Endless short videos, background music that covers your thoughts, easy to digest information, sudden bursts of shopping, all designed to do one thing: make sure you never have to feel uncomfortable. When you are sad, something helps you forget it. When you are anxious, something calms you. When you feel empty, there are endless things to keep you busy. And when you stay busy long enough, you stop knowing what it is you are missing. Look around you. An entire society living in a constant state of stimulation, a rain of dopamine falling endlessly on the human mind. We call it entertainment, connection, staying updated. But deep inside, it is a sophisticated way of avoiding discomfort. You no longer have to feel sad, because sadness has been replaced by content. You no longer have to think, because someone else already thinks for you. You don't have to sit alone, because there is always someone talking, singing, texting, laughing, pulling you away from silence. The whole world seems afraid of silence, as if silence were an incurable disease. What Huxley predicted was not just a dystopian future. It was a mirror reflecting who we are today. A world full of comfort, yet empty of meaning. A humanity that willingly trades depth for ease, understanding for convenience. We lull ourselves with small pleasures while our souls quietly shrink. No one needs to control us anymore, because we no longer want to break free. Imagine living in a city where every need is met instantly. No more pain, no more struggle, no more waiting. Every discomfort can be erased with a single tap. At first, it feels like paradise, but over time, what happens to those who never have to endure? They grow weaker. They become fragile before the smallest obstacle. And to avoid pain, they cling even tighter to pleasure, to everything that helps them not to feel. A perfect circle of dependence, wrapped in shallow smiles. The most dangerous thing about control through pleasure is that it looks like freedom. You are not forced, you are choosing. You can choose what to watch, what to eat, what to listen to, whom to follow. But look closer. Those choices are arranged. What you see, what you like, what you share, all calculated in advance to please you, to keep you hooked. That freedom is the perfect illusion, because it makes you believe you are in control, when in truth, You are being guided toward what benefits someone else. In such a world, rebellion no longer needs to be crushed, because no one wants to rebel anymore. Safety has replaced courage. Comfort has killed desire. The scariest thing is not being forced, but having no reason left to say no. When everything feels so pleasant, who would risk discomfort to seek the truth? When every moment is filled with images, sounds, and quick emotions, who still has the patience to hear their own inner voice? One day, you may realize you have forgotten how to wait. You have forgotten the feeling of doing something simply because it matters, not because it feels good. You read a book, but your mind jumps to the next video. You sit beside someone, but your eyes are glued to a screen. You are tired, but do not sleep. Sad, but do not cry. You move through emotions like scrolling through pictures, fast, shallow, never touching. Freedom does not die with a scream. It dies with laughter, with cheerful background music, with long nights of unwinding. Freedom dies when people lose the ability to endure, because those who cannot endure are easy to control. You don't need to be punished. You only need to be lulled to sleep long enough. And little by little, people become reflections of the world they created. Smooth, efficient, convenient, but empty. No longing, no depth, no courage to question. A world like this, Huxley said, needs no dictatorship to survive. Because everyone already loves their own chains. What makes Huxley truly terrifying is not that he predicted the future so accurately, but that he understood the weakness in human nature. The craving for comfort over freedom. The desire for safety over truth. When we can no longer bear pain, we are willing to trade our souls to avoid it. And then, no tyranny needs violence. It only needs to keep us busy with pleasure. Think of a quiet evening, when you turn everything off and just sit there, doing nothing. The first feeling is unease. Your heart beats faster, your mind stirs. You feel empty, lost, as if something is missing. That is the symptom of a mind addicted to stimulation. You no longer know how to be with yourself. Every silence feels frightening, and in that fear, you willingly return to the screen, to the noise, to another rush of short-lived pleasure. You willingly return to the prison. If Huxley were alive today, he would not be surprised, because the world he imagined has already come true, only without the fiction. We are living in brave new world, but no one rereads it to notice. We live under neon lights, in bright laughter, and we call it freedom. Yet somewhere, in the silence we avoid, a small voice still whispers, "Are you truly free, or have you just learned to love your cage?" And perhaps that question, small and fragile as a breath, is the only thing left that can awaken us from the sleep of pleasure. Because freedom, if it still exists, may begin with that very unease, that brief moment when you realize this happiness is not real. That behind all this comfort lies an untouched emptiness. And from there, you begin to see the price we pay for a freedom without pain, without struggle, without thought. The price of a soul worn down until it no longer remembers who it is. No one is really forcing you to live this way. No one makes you stay up late to watch one more video or check your phone just because it vibrated lightly in your pocket. But why is it so hard to stop? Why, even when you know you are wasting time, do you keep going? Perhaps because in silence, you feel exposed. You feel something that no screen can soothe, the unease of facing yourself. And so you hide. You reach for small, quick, easy pleasures, not because they are good, but because they help you not to feel. We have been trained for this. From a very young age, school teaches us to obey, to repeat, but not to sit quietly with the confusion of an unanswered question. Work teaches us productivity, not meaning. Society teaches us to be fine, happy, positive, as if every other emotion were wrong. Every time you feel sad, someone says, "Don't think too much, go out and have fun." Every time you feel empty, someone says, "Keep yourself busy, it will pass." And, little by little, we learn to silence our truest feelings with artificial joy. No one teaches us how to listen to our pain, only how to push it away. So when we grow up, we carry that habit with us. Whenever something feels wrong, we instinctively look for what feels pleasant. A cup of coffee, a meaningless conversation, an old movie, or just a few unconscious minutes scrolling online, as if sadness were an enemy. and silence a punishment. But the moment we can no longer bear silence, we lose the most human ability of all, the ability to talk to ourselves. The world out there understands this better than we think. Companies, platforms, apps, all built on a simple psychological truth. People cannot stand prolonged discomfort. Every time you are about to leave, a notification pops up. Every time you are about to stop, another video autoplays. They don't force you. They only suggest. And you, tired and lonely, agree. Just this once. Just 5 more minutes. But those 5 minutes repeat endlessly, forming a spiral with no way out. You think you are choosing, but in truth, the choices are made for you. You think you are relaxing, but in truth, you are being programmed to forget. To forget the emptiness. To forget the question of meaning. To forget yourself. When pleasure becomes a reflex, freedom disappears. You are no longer doing what you want. You are doing what you have been trained to want. Perhaps you have tried to disconnect, to turn off your phone, leave social media, sit quietly one afternoon. At first, you feel light. But after a few minutes, unease creeps in. The mind starts searching for something to fill the gap. A song, a book, anything. And when it finds nothing, you feel like you are running out of air. That feeling is addiction, not to devices, but to constant comfort. Just as the body cannot live without oxygen, the modern mind cannot live without stimulation. If you stop long enough, you will notice there is a part of you, very small but very real, that longs for silence. That part is tired of pretending to be fine. It wants to feel, even if that feeling is pain or loneliness, as long as it is real. But to hear it, you must dare to endure the discomfort at the beginning, the empty quiet you have been avoiding for years. Because it is in that silence that the buried things begin to surface. The questions you tried to forget, the wounds you covered with a smile. Maybe as you listen to this, your heart feels a little heavy. Maybe you see a bit of yourself in this story. If so, share that feeling. Not because I need views, but because someone out there may be struggling with the same nameless exhaustion. A small comment, a quiet message, can be a way to remind each other that we are not alone in awakening, that there are still people brave enough to pause even for a moment to see where they are heading. Society makes us believe that busyness measures worth, that only when we keep doing and consuming do we have value. But it is in the moments of doing nothing that we truly exist, because only when the noise fades can you hear the quiet whisper inside, the voice you have long ignored. And when you start to listen, you realize the emptiness you fear is not your enemy. It is simply the open space from which something real can grow. Huxley once said, "The perfect slavery needs no chains. Perfect slavery needs only pleasure." When I read that line, I wondered, have we willingly stepped into that prison? Just because it feels warmer and brighter than the world outside, we stay positive in a hollow way, cheerful like machines, forgetting what it means to truly hurt. Because pain, though cruel, is proof of life. A wound is evidence that we still feel. But when everything is softened by pleasure, we slowly become smiling machines. There is something interesting about this fear of silence. It is not just yours, it belongs to our entire age, because silence is where everything hidden rises. In silence, you hear the whispers of the life you have not lived fully, the people you have forgotten, the choices you were too afraid to make. It is not pleasant, but it is necessary, because only those who dare to listen to that voice can ever be truly free. And perhaps from that realization, we can begin to ask the real questions. If pleasure can lull us to sleep, what can awaken us? If comfort blinds us, what can make us see again? The answer, as you will soon discover, is not in rejecting pleasure, but in finding something that makes us live deeper than it. Something greater, truer, and more enduring than all the fleeting joys this world can give. Imagine a world where no one ever suffers. Every sadness erased with a single click. Every tear replaced by a gentle laugh. No more failure, no more pain, no more loneliness. People call it paradise, but if you look closely, you will see it is only a vast laboratory where emotions have been sterilized until they no longer have life. A world without pain sounds perfect. Yet it is also a world where people lose the ability to grow. Because if you never fall, how can you learn to rise? If you never fail, how can you learn patience? In Brave New World, Huxley described such a society. There, people drank soma to stay happy, to stay stable. Every time sadness appeared, one dose was enough to make it vanish. And so, pain, once the doorway to self-understanding, was treated as a disease. What they did not see was that when pain disappears, depth dies with it. Joy becomes hollow, love becomes shallow, and life itself turns into a loop of pleasant sensations, repeating endlessly like a cheerful commercial tune. Today, we have no soma, but we have far more sophisticated versions. Social media filled with likes that replace real connection, dating apps that erase rejection, algorithms that know what we want before we do. Every technology is designed to make us feel better, easier, happier, and before long, they become the numbing drugs we cannot live without. Whenever we are sad, we turn to the screen. Whenever we feel lonely, we hide in the digital world. Slowly, we forget that sadness can be beautiful, loneliness can be deep, and discomfort can teach us something essential. The truth is, pain has a purpose. It does not come to punish, but to show you what you cannot see when everything feels good. Pain reveals the cracks in your soul, the places where light can enter. It forces you to pause, to face yourself, to strip away the layers of illusion that comfort has wrapped around you. And in that fragile moment, you finally meet your true self. Not the version in photos, not the one you perform for others, but the real you, imperfect, vulnerable, and yearning to live honestly. But this world despises that. Modern society fears people who can endure pain. Because they cannot be controlled, they do not need to buy things to feel better, to conform to be accepted, or to seek artificial pleasure to feel worthy. They stand firm in the storm, and that is why the system, built on dependence, needs us weak. It needs us afraid of pain, afraid of loneliness, afraid of uncertainty. It needs us constantly seeking quick fixes, a virtual smile, a dose of dopamine, a temporary patch for the soul. Have you noticed how restless you feel when the Wi-Fi drops, when there is nothing to do for even a minute? That discomfort is the addiction uncovered. And in that moment, if you dare to stay, if you dare not to run, you will see something surprising. That discomfort does not kill you. It is simply life-stirring, reminding you that something within still longs to be heard. We have mistaken happiness for comfort, forgetting that there is another kind of happiness, deeper, stronger, that only comes after pain. Just as the body grows stronger after healing, the soul grows wiser through endurance. If you always avoid suffering, you remain smooth, perfect, and empty. But if you dare to walk through it, you will find that even in pain, there is a fragile light, the kind that makes people real, kind, and free. Think about the moments that shaped you. Were they the ones filled with praise, joy, and recognition? Or the ones of loss, failure, and starting over? It is in those moments of breaking that you learn to see yourself, to let go, to love others, not for the joy they bring, but because you understand their fragility, just like your own. That kind of wisdom no shallow happiness can give. The pain-free world Huxley warned about is a world without humanity. Only creatures who laugh, consume, and forget. And perhaps the scariest part is that we are already drifting toward it without noticing. Every time you avoid sadness, you take one step closer. Every time you choose comfort over honesty, you lay another brick in your own prison. A strong society is built by people who can endure suffering. But a society that fears pain will only produce fragile beings, easily led, easily manipulated, eager to believe empty promises. Because those who cannot bear suffering will always look for someone else to bear it for them. And in that dependence, freedom dies quietly, unnoticed. If you listen closely, you will realize that every system of power understands this truth. It needs no violence, no bans. It only needs to keep people busy avoiding pain, and they will willingly surrender their will. The prison then is no longer outside, it is within. A prison built from fear and held shut by comfort. And perhaps the real question is no longer, how can I avoid pain? But how can I learn to stay with it? Because only when you allow yourself to feel pain can you learn to rise above it. Only when you endure lack can you understand what it means to have enough. And only when you stop chasing instant pleasure can you find lasting peace, not from the world outside, but from within yourself. Pain is not the enemy. It is the guide. And perhaps, within the darkness of suffering, the first light of freedom begins to appear. There will come a time, in the endless cycle of easy pleasures, when you ask yourself, what am I really searching for? Happiness or just comfort? Pleasure or purpose? That question seems simple, but if you pause long enough, you will realize it is the crossroads that divides an entire life. Because the modern world has taught us that happiness is the goal, but never explained what kind of happiness. So we go looking for it in fleeting fragments, a few dozen likes, a purchase we don't need, a stranger's attention online, a beautiful trip to take a beautiful photo. We call that living. But in truth, we are only extending the feeling of being fine a little longer before the emptiness returns. The most dangerous thing about pleasure is not that it is bad, but that it is short. It forces you to seek more, and then more again. Each time you reach it, it slips away faster, like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become, because pleasure is never enough. It can fill the gap for a moment, but it can never fill the soul. Think for a moment. What are the moments that truly shaped you? Were they the quick flashes of joy, or the times you had to overcome something greater than yourself? Maybe you remember a long, lonely night, a failure that broke you, or someone who left. Painful, yes, but real. And from that place, you began to understand what you truly wanted. Pleasure makes us run from the truth. Purpose makes us face it. Between those two, only one path leads to freedom. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. When you have a purpose, you don't need pleasure to survive. You can walk through pain without being consumed by it. You don't need to feel good. You need to feel meaning. But to gain that, you must give up the one thing this world worships most: ease. Purpose is not born in comfort. It is forged in long nights no one sees, in difficult choices, in moments when you want to give up but keep going anyway. It is not glamorous, it is not celebrated, and sometimes it gives you nothing but a quiet certainty that you are on the right path. But that feeling, small as it is enough to keep you standing when everything else falls apart. Society does not want you to find that feeling, because a person with purpose is dangerous. They cannot be manipulated by advertisements. They do not need shallow thrills to feel worthy. They do not buy, click, or follow trends. They choose. They know what is worth living for and what is only illusion. For a system that depends on your dependence, that is a threat. So we are encouraged to seek pleasure instead of meaning. Every day, we are told that buying more, watching more, experiencing more will make us happy. But no one tells us that meaning requires loss, that true happiness sometimes looks a lot like sadness. Maybe that is why so many feel they are living, but not really alive. They have everything: work, friends, devices, entertainment, yet inside there is still a hollow noise, like a beautiful song played too many times, lovely but lifeless. And when someone asks, "What makes you get up every morning?" most have no answer. We live just to keep going, not to get anywhere. In truth, pleasure and purpose are not enemies. Pleasure is the reward. Purpose is the road. When you have the road, joy becomes secondary. When you have no road, joy becomes a drug. We don't need to eliminate pleasure. We just need to put it in its right place. Let joy be the result of meaning, not the escape from emptiness. If you have ever felt tired of being happy all the time, know that it is a good sign. It means your soul is longing for something real. It doesn't need more laughter. It needs direction. Ask yourself, what are you willing to suffer for? What makes you want to become a better version of yourself? The answer doesn't have to be grand. It could be caring for someone, finishing a piece of work, learning to forgive, or keeping an old promise. But once you find it, every joy begins to change. Because pleasure, when illuminated by purpose, is no longer a prison. It becomes a reward, small, gentle, enough to make you smile, but never enough to enslave you. And then you begin to understand that happiness is not a feeling, but a direction. It is not a state to reach, but a journey of a soul that knows where it is going. The world may still be loud, still calling you with a million new pleasures. But if inside you there is a reason to continue, all those noises will fade into a distant echo. You will no longer need to run from emptiness, because you will know you are passing through it. moving toward a place where joy is no longer anesthesia, but proof that you are living right. And perhaps that is where true freedom begins, when you are no longer driven by pleasure, but guided by meaning. When you no longer need to feel good to know you are alive, but simply know that every step, however hard, is leading towards something that matters. Because only on that path do we stop being slaves and begin to be ourselves. When you realize that pleasure can become a chain, the next question appears, natural yet challenging. How do you break free? How do you reclaim control of your own mind when the world around you seems designed to make you forget who you are? The answer is not to abandon everything or live in denial, but to awaken deliberately. A conscious choice to swim against the current in an age drunk on dopamine. Escaping the trap of pleasure is not a battle with the outside world, but a journey inward. It begins with something that seems simple: strategic subtraction. You do not need to give up every joy, only to pause long enough to see what truly makes you alive and what merely makes you forget. One day without social media. One meal without turning on the TV. One quiet afternoon spent walking without taking photos, without music. When you do this, your mind will react like a child having its toy taken away. It will crave its familiar stimulation. But if you can endure, even for a few hours, something miraculous happens. Silence begins to grow. Small details you never noticed before. The light on the wall, the rhythm of your breath, the sound of wind outside the window, return with their original meaning. In that subtraction, the brain resets. The parts numbed by constant stimulation slowly awaken. You begin to find satisfaction in simple things. A warm cup of water, a real conversation, a page read slowly. Natural joy returns, without display, without needing to be shared. And at that moment, you realize the world has always been beautiful. You were just too noisy to see it. The second step is learning to endure discomfort. It is a lesson an entire generation is forgetting. We are used to everything being instant. Fast delivery, instant replies, immediate satisfaction. But true freedom is not for the faint-hearted. It requires you to stay with the emotions you once avoided. Sadness, anxiety, loneliness, emptiness. Try sitting still for 5 minutes doing nothing and watch what your mind does. It will resist, it will panic, it will search for escape. Let it sit and feel the restlessness itself. Each time you ride out a wave of discomfort, your capacity to endure grows stronger. Like muscles, the soul too must be trained with effort and patience. The third step is to relearn the art of questioning. In this world, we are used to having answers ready, from Google, from others, from motivational content. But freedom begins with asking again, why do I need this? Who benefits from my addiction? What would I do with my time if I stopped consuming? These questions do not need immediate answers. They just need to be lived with. Each time you pause to ask, you create a crack of light in the wall of conditioning. You begin to see the system, and in that very moment, its power over you weakens. Eventually, you will find that silence is no longer frightening. It becomes a place you long to return to. In silence, thoughts settle, emotions fade, and something truer begins to speak. It could be a memory, an old dream, or something you once loved and forgot. Silence is not empty. It is simply waiting for you to be brave enough to listen. And once you learn to stay in it, you no longer need to escape into pleasure. From there, the journey of replacing pleasure with purpose begins. There is no formula for this, only honesty. Ask yourself, what makes me want to wake up each morning? The answer does not have to be grand. Sometimes it is caring for a loved one, finishing a project, or simply living one day without lying to yourself. Purpose is not something you write down. It is something you feel. When you do something with full attention and sincerity, you have already begun to live with purpose. And then, pleasure returns to its rightful place. No longer a chain, but a reward. But remember, when you change, the world will react. It does not like your silence. When you step away from the crowd, slow down, start asking questions. People around you will find it strange, even uncomfortable. Some will admire you, but most will feel threatened. Because when you awaken, you become a mirror for their sleep. They will say you are too serious, too deep, or should just lighten up. But you know they are only afraid. afraid that if they too stopped, they would have to face the emptiness they have long avoided. Smile at them. Do not argue. Because you have walked past the place where they still stand. You understand that true freedom cannot be forced. It can only be found when each person is ready to face themselves. And when you keep that calm within you, the world can no longer touch you. Everything remains loud, tempting, and spinning. But you stand in the center, still, clear, and in control. Then you will realize something small but deeply true. Silence is also a form of happiness. Not the happiness of laughter, but the happiness of stillness, where there is nothing to seek, nothing to prove, nothing to flee from. And perhaps, in that silence, for the first time in years, you hear your own voice, clear, steady, and free. And from that silence, something new begins to form. Not the denial of pleasure, but a different way of living. A conscious life where pleasure is savored, pain is welcomed, and truth is faced. A life where you are no longer a puppet of the world, but the one who writes the rhythm of your own breath. Then comes a moment when you quietly realize that you are no longer like those around you. The world still moves fast, still talks about success, about travel, about joy and freedom. But you begin to sense something hollow in all that laughter. You see your former self in them. Always busy, always searching for something to feel okay. And when you no longer move at the same pace, when you stop, others grow uneasy. Your stillness makes them uncomfortable. It is like a mirror, reflecting what they do not wish to see within themselves. Some will admire you, thinking you have found peace. Others will smirk, saying you are overthinking, that life is meant to be enjoyed. They will invite you back to the parties, the endless messages, the rhythm that keeps the mind too occupied to feel. But now, you no longer react as before, not because you dislike them, but because you understand. They are not ready. They are still dreaming the dream of pleasure, believing it is freedom. But you have awakened. Awakening, at times, is a form of loneliness. When you no longer seek the same pleasures as the crowd, you will feel apart. Shallow conversations tire you. Relationships built on convenience begin to fade. You speak less, observe more. You learn to choose silence over empty words, a quiet evening reading instead of scrolling until midnight, a slow walk instead of running with the crowd. At times, you may feel lost, but being lost in a noisy world is often the first sign of freedom. And then, something strange happens. When you stop searching, the real things begin to find you. A sincere conversation, an old friend, a feeling you thought you had lost. Joy still arrives, but no longer rushed, no longer as medicine. It comes softly, naturally, needing no proof, no audience. It is joy that does not need to be shown, the kind only those who have endured silence can understand. True freedom is not doing everything you want. It is being able not to do what others want you to do. When you can look at pleasure without being pulled by it, when you can stay with pain without running, when you can walk through the noise and still keep your quiet center, that is freedom. Not the freedom of the body, but the freedom of the mind. But this path is not easy. It moves against everything society has taught you. When you choose awareness, you choose to go upstream. You choose to feel instead of numb, to face instead of flee, to be real instead of comfortable. And its price is solitude. Yet it is a noble solitude, where you no longer need anyone to confirm your worth. You are with yourself, and that is enough. The world will still try to pull you back. With ads, with trends, with promises of things easier, faster, happier. But once you've tasted the sweetness of self-mastery, those temptations become distant echoes. You don't need to fight them. You only need to see them. Because once you see, they lose their power. No one can control a mind that has recognized the game. You may come to realize that freedom doesn't arrive in a grand awakening, but in small things. A deep breath, a slower decision, a moment when you choose honesty over comfort. Each small act, repeated day after day, rebuilds the foundation of your soul. Steady, calm, no longer dependent on the world outside. But be careful. Awakening does not make life easier. It makes life truer. You will see more clearly what hurts you, and you will also see the falseness in the pleasures you once loved. Yet within that truth, you discover a new kind of strength, the strength of someone who sees, yet still chooses to stay, to love, to live meaningfully in a lost world. And perhaps, in the end, what Huxley once warned of is no longer prophecy, but a personal challenge. Will you dare to love awareness more than comfort? Will you have the courage to live in a world where everyone willingly chooses slavery, except you? Pleasure without purpose is just another form of slavery. Now you have seen the cage. You know the door is open, and the choice, as always, is yours. To keep scrolling, to keep numbing yourself with brief, glittering pleasures, or to stop, look directly within, and step out into the quiet where true freedom begins, in the stillness of an awakened mind. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.